Now, there's this matter that we always talk about, right? That in good times, we think that bad times are never going to come.
That's true.
And in bad times, we are thinking that good times will never come. Now, Norma, I love that comment that you're saying that chances of decreasing are very rare. Now, what I want you to do is that we were looking at what has actually been going on in the market. And we have seen this trend that's going on. So what would happen is that the US would tell us that will say that they are keeping their interest rate stable at that particular month. Then chances are we are also going to be keeping it stable. So what had happened in December, they had said that they are not changing their interest rate. Guess what? We didn't change our interest rate. Now there are talks that in the second quarter, they're going to actually start decreasing interest rates. But now it's also speculations that is it going to happen or is it not going to happen.
Yeah.
But the talks are from the US
Yeah.
that they're going to be decreasing the interest rates. So we'll just have to see what's actually going to go on in the second quarter. I'm just praying when they decrease.
But imagine this, bro. Imagine investing because of the fear of interest rate. Now, literally, if let's just say that they went down a bit, and I'm saying that this is the right time to now invest, just because they went down a bit.
Yeah.
Now you're looking at holding a property for the next 20 years.
Yeah.
What's going to happen to you emotionally when it goes up and down the whole time?
Because you're investing because of interest rates.
You're investing because of interest rates. Now you're not looking at it in terms of how is this really affecting my overall game. So what do I mean overall game? When we go into any deal, I know the type of cash flow that I want. And I know that if I'm not getting this type of cash flow, I'm walking. So this is whereby we're saying that it shouldn't be emotional. Whereas some people will still hold on to a property whereby they're not making money from it anymore. So when you're looking at the game players in this, the Reserve Bank, those guys are not playing when it comes to the interest.
They don't.
The commercial banks, those guys are not playing when it comes to the interest. If you don't pay, they call you. And then you look at the property investor who doesn't have any knowledge. Now for them, it's more of property investing is a long-term game. Now you look at the whole 20 years, you haven't made money for the whole 20 years while you're holding that property. So does this mean that when it comes to property, I'll only start making profit after the 20th year? I'm saying because of the interest rates, right?
Yeah.
Let's say interest rates, as a result of the interest rates being high, I wasn't making cash flow. Now someone comes to me and says that with every property, when they're saying that it's a long-term game, they mean that you're going to start making money after 20 years. Is that true or is that false?
No, that's false, bro. That's false. Now, when you're really looking at the key players in property investing and how they are investing in property is a hedge for the money that they are actually using right now. So say for instance, if I'm getting 1 million right now, the question is, what do I do with that 1 million? So what people will do is that they'll use that 1 million to buy a property. Now, if I'm buying a property using that 1 million, this basically means that the 1 million that I have is now stored into this house and I'm getting cash flow on a monthly basis. Now, the key point that I was saying is the cash flow. Now, if you are saying that you're taking this money and you're putting it into a property and on a monthly basis you are required to actually take out money on a monthly basis, that doesn't necessarily make business sense. I mean, who goes into business to only lose money on a monthly basis and say that they'll make money after 20 years? It doesn't make sense for me. Now, looking at that strategy, for me personally, I mean, I'd stay away from that one.
Yeah.
Now, Noma's asking a question.
Yeah.
She's saying that what happens when you're in the process of buying, but the seller passes on?
So you're in the process of buying, but the seller passes on.
So you buy a property from me, then in the process, I pass on.
Man, it depends how far is the sale itself.
Yeah.
Because now, if it's not even lodged, now you ask yourself if the beneficiaries or anybody who's left would want to contest that sale. And again, because the question is, even if it does go through, who the money will be going through. So I'll say that we need to consult a conveyancer, which is a property lawyer, and then they're going to be looking at in terms of how far is the process. Because now, if it's not that far, at least the money will go through and then but it's dangerous though. Why am I saying that it's dangerous? If the family was living in that property
And
and
then the
they
property
didn't
is-
want to sell. Now you can still push and say that, hey, but me, I want to sell this property. Or me, I want to buy this property because you are the one who's buying it.
Okay,
Then
the
you
sale,
find-
the sale is not lodged at the deed office.
Yeah, at least. Yeah, that's why I said let's consult the conveyancer if it's lodged or not.
Yeah.
And it's dangerous, guys, because if I'm in a situation whereby the person passed away and then the family was living in that property, remember now it's emotional. And you find that, let's say it's a family of 5, then you find some people don't want the sale to go through. Last thing you want is your money going through for the sale and then the people not wanting to move out. So again, as soon as you hear about death upon that, I'd really consult the conveyancer in terms of how far is it and just understand. Because
Yeah.
that's the same as a late estate, right?
Yeah. So what would happen generally if you pass on while the sale is still in the process?
Yeah.
What would happen is that it would actually be frozen, right? And then it will fall part of the estate. And then the person that is going to be taking over the estate is the one that's going to say if they are willing to continue or not continue with that particular sale. So that's the tough part about it, man. And the thing about property is that it takes around 2 months in South Africa to register a property.
Best case, bro.
Best case, it takes 2 months for the property to register. So for that 2 months, you just have to pray that that person doesn't actually pass on.
But
Now,
when it's a late
this
estate,
is from both. This is from both. Yeah?
when it's a late estate, it's worse.
Yeah, no, I'm saying 2 months to understand if that person still wants to sell the property.
Okay.
Right? Now, in the 2 months that I'm referring to is that if someone is buying my property and that person passes on, chances are I'm not going to sell the property anymore to that particular person because they are no more. Not unless if they had a spouse, right? Now, the inverse is also true. If the seller passes on, now it's a problem because this property has to be winded up into the estate. So that's the problem that you would actually be facing, man.
Yeah, man. And this one of late estate, so when we're referring to late estate, we're just referring to a property of someone who's deceased, right? We need to be very careful when it comes to late estates. And we've been in a situation whereby you might buy a property of someone who's no more, only to find out that the family, now as I did mention, they don't want to move. Now you need to deal with everything, because what would happen sometimes is that money would be contested. Hence some families don't want to move. Because let's just say that it's the kids that are living in the property, and you find out that the parent knew that these kids, they're no good. So the parent then did is that the money and everything else, they sent it to, let's say, a cousin. And now the kids were not left with anything. So ultimately these kids might give you a problem as the buyer. And you know, here's the unfortunate thing, as I'm seeing these situations, I've seen it so many times whereby estate agents need to do better when it comes to such sales. If I'm an estate agent and I know of the situation that these 10 or these people that are living there do not want to move out, I need to really think about, if I'm going to be so greedy that I'm just focused on the sale itself, how will it affect the buyer?
Yeah.
I know so many people that have bought properties, but they don't own those properties in terms of...
True.
It's sad. And the key player here is the estate agent. We can do better as estate agents in terms of fair play. Yes, we understand that you wanted commission. Literally, you saw that 8% of 1 million, all my problems can go away. But then think about the buyer now. Because literally, you can get that 8%. Now, ultimately, you left a buyer with a bad taste of property investing.
Now, the buyer is actually stuck with this property that you sold that person, and now they needed to move in that property. Now they're having to pay double rent. Now, these are the cases that are really normal for some people. You find out that there's a property that was on sale. I remember there was another property here in Soweto, right, in Jabulani, whereby there was an old man living in that property and saying that they would be killed before they are taken out of that property. Now, if you're having that situation, it's a quite tough one, because now for 2 months, when the property was actually lodged, you were excited that at least after 2 months, I'm going to get this property and I'm going to be able to fix it up and resell it. But now the problem is that if you are now faced with this person saying that they're not leaving the property, now you can't do anything to the property.
And even these ones, man, of family houses, man, because I've seen family house go south in a sense whereby you find that there's 3 parties that own the house. and then now the two would sell it without the third one knowing. And all of a sudden, this third person is going to rebel.
Yeah.
They're not going to want to just walk away.
Yeah.
So we can also do better as sellers again. We talked about how estate agents can do better, but also as sellers, let's involve all the people that are in the transaction, because it's really not fair looking at someone who's a first-time buyer. They were really excited about buying something, only to find out that politics or domestics of someone else now affects them.
Now that you talk about it, man, I remember there was a situation whereby there was that situation, right, whereby there were three owners, right? They were kids. So now the two want to sell the property, the other one doesn't want to sell the property.
Yeah.
Now the property got sold, right? It got sold because remember, it can't get sold legally if the third person is not there to sign, right? Now the thing is, if there's these three, and then this one is not found, the property won't be transferred to the next person, right? To the next person's name. We need to find this person so that they can also sign on that offer to purchase. Now, what happened is that these two, because they were living in this property, sold the property and convinced the buyer to give them the money. This person or the buyer gave these two sellers the money. They gave them the key. And then the buyer was happy. Because remember, as a buyer, you're not thinking, most of buyers, right? This is what I've seen. Most buyers are not thinking title deed. Most buyers are not thinking certificate of compliance. They're not thinking of COC. They're not thinking of these two documents, right? Now, this person moves into the property. They start a family. It's nice, right? Because most of the time, we are used to someone squatting in your property and doesn't want to live in the property.
Yeah.
Now, 10 years later, this third person comes back,
right,
and is like, bro, this is my family house. How were you able to buy it if I didn't sign on the document? Now the question is that, okay, let's see the title deed. The title deed, it's still saying that it's owned by three people. So you are living in this property, however, you don't own the property. Now, if we are involving the police, what's going to happen? These three are still in the game. So now we need to speak to this too. So basically what I'm saying is that you still don't own the property. You still have to go through the procedure of going to court. And if this person says that they want their money or they don't want to sell the property, that means that you need to move out and then deal with the two that sold you this property, man.